before we get lost in the weeds, let's set the stage. Big picture, we're talking about procurement, which is basically just a fancy word for...
Getting the stuff a business needs to, well, do business.
Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. There are two main flavors of procurement, operational and direct. And our expert here is going to help us unpack the difference.
You got it. Think of it this way. Grabbing a coffee on your way to work, that's operational procurement.
Okay, I'm with you.
But planning the menu for a fancy restaurant, that's more like direct procurement.
Okay, I'm already intrigued. Why does the restaurant menu comparison resonate so well with direct procurement?
Because just like a chef carefully selects the freshest ingredients, the ones that really make the dishes sing.
Okay.
Direct procurement is about sourcing those materials and services that are absolutely essential for what a company produces or, the services they offer.
Gotcha. So for a company like, say, a car manufacturer.
An example.
We're talking to the steel for the car frame, the engine components, the tires, all that.
Spot on. Those are their direct procurement items. And because these purchases are often, huge in volume, happening again and again, and you can usually predict when you'll need them,
right,
they're really well suited for automation, something we'll definitely unpack later on.
Looking forward to that. Now, back to our morning coffee run operational procurement. It's easy to kind of overlook because it just seems to, happen. The office supplies magically appear, software subscriptions renew without you even thinking about it.
It's the invisible hand of business.
Yeah. But there's a whole system behind that seamlessness, right?
100%. Operational procurement is all about keeping the lights on. It's the tactical purchasing of those everyday necessities that, most people don't even think about.
So we're talking office supplies, software licenses.
Okay, so
that new laptop you've been wanting but haven't quite gotten around to ordering.
That's the one.
And these purchases, unlike the stuff we were talking about with direct procurement, these are often made by, a much wider range of people within a company, not just procurement specialists, right?
You're absolutely right. That's a key difference. Think about it. You might have thousands of employees across all sorts of departments making operational purchases. Someone in marketing needs a new whiteboard. Someone in IT needs software licenses. Someone in HR needs, a giant stack of those personality test forms.
Exactly.
But with direct procurement, you typically have a smaller, more specialized team handling those big-ticket items in raw materials.
So it's like having to design a system that can handle both the casual user grabbing a virtual stapler and the procurement expert negotiating a major contract for, a year's worth of seal.
It's a real balancing act. And the textbook actually makes a hilarious comparison, saying that using a complex ERP system for simple purchases is like...
I want me to guess.
...using an airplane cockpit to steer a bicycle.
Okay, I have to admit, that analogy kind of threw me for a loop. I'm not sure I entirely get it.
What they're getting at is that using a super complicated system for a simple task can be, a bit overkill. It's clunky, it's inefficient. And that's actually a big reason why solutions like SAP Ariba buying came about.
So it's kind of like, having a simplified control panel for those everyday tasks instead of having to navigate the entire, complex system.
Exactly. It's all about making the experience smoother and more intuitive, especially for those I need it now purchases, like when your laptop suddenly decides to retire. But there is a catch. Even though these newer cloud-based procurement solutions offer a more, shall we say, user-friendly experience.
There's always a catch, isn't there? What is it this time?
Well, even though they have this more streamlined interface, they still rely on the heavy lifting of that core SAP ERP system behind the scenes. Think of it like the engine of a car. You might have a fancy new dashboard and all the bells and whistles, but you still need that powerful engine under the hood to actually make it go.
So those core functions, like making sure the purchase is approved, that the budget allows for it, even just making sure the right people have access to make certain purchases.
Yep, all of that.
That's still happening within the core SAP ERP system.
Exactly. It's like the brains behind the operation working behind the scenes to make sure everything runs smoothly.
So we've got, on the one hand, people just grabbing what they need day to day, and then on the other, these huge strategic purchases of the raw materials a company needs to actually, make their product. But how do we avoid those moments where someone accidentally orders 500 staplers instead of 50? You know what I mean?
Right, like a whole office supply closet full of staplers.
Exactly.
Well, that's where SAP S/4HANA really shines with its really strong inventory management tools. And when it comes to direct procurement specifically, there's this whole other layer of planning involved, something called materials requirements planning, or like everyone calls it, MRP.
Yeah, MRP. The textbook we've been looking at, it compares MRP to a recipe and a shopping list for a business, which I gotta say, I get the idea.
It paints a picture, right?
It does. But I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around how that actually works in practice. Like, what's happening in this system?
So essentially, the system is working to make sure you have the right materials at the right time, so you can meet whatever demands are coming in from, production.
Gotcha.
So think about it. The system is looking at all your production orders. It's factoring in what you've already got sitting in your inventory, even looking ahead based on your sales forecasts to, anticipate your future needs.
So it's like having a, I don't know, crystal ball, but for your supply chain. Like, it's telling you what you're going to need before you even know you need it.
You got it. It's all about staying ahead of the curve. No more scrambling at the last minute because you're missing some key part. No more, having to stop production because you just don't have the materials. MRP helps you avoid all that.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But I'm guessing there's more to it than just, knowing what to order and when.
Right. You're right. There is.
Yeah.
Within MRP, you've actually got a few different planning options, each one kind of tailored to a specific need. So, the most basic one is called consumption-based planning. Basically, what it does is it looks at how you've used a material in the past, your historical usage patterns, to predict how much you're going to need in the future.
So, if I've ordered 100 boxes of widgets every month for the last year, the system is going to assume I'm going to need roughly 100 boxes of widgets next month, too.
Exactly. Simple, but it works really well, especially for items where the demand is, pretty consistent.
Well,
but when you're dealing with more complex situations, and this is especially true in direct procurement, there's something called MRP planning, which is a bit more involved.
Okay, so how is that one different?
Well, with MRP planning, it takes those longer lead times into account. It thinks about, potential disruptions in the supply chain, things happen unexpectedly. And it also considers those fluctuations in demand because not everything is as consistent as those widgets, right?
Makes sense. So it's like, instead of just assuming I'm going to need 100 widgets again,
Yeah.
it's like, hold on, let's factor in that the widget factory might be closed for a month, or that maybe, just maybe, you're going to need 150 widgets because you're launching a big marketing campaign.
You've got it. It's like having a chess master planning your procurement strategy, always thinking several moves ahead.
That's a great way to put it. So we've got these different planning strategies, which is amazing. But the thing that really caught my attention earlier was you were saying how SAP S/4HANA can actually automate a lot of these tasks.
Absolutely. And that's where things get really exciting. Imagine instead of having to, crunch those numbers manually, create purchase orders by hand, and then chase down approvals, the system just takes care of all that for you.
Hold on, you're saying the system can just, order stuff for me?
In a way, yes. It can actually automate a lot of those tedious, repetitive tasks that, let's be honest, no one really enjoys doing. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about automation within SAP S/4HANA. It's about working smarter, not harder.
Okay, that does sound incredibly efficient. But does this mean, the human element becomes less important? Are we all going to be replaced by robots?
Not at all. I think it's more about, automation taking care of those routine tasks, the boring stuff, and freeing up your procurement team to really focus on the more strategic things, the things that require that human touch.
So instead of, drowning in paperwork, they can focus on, negotiating better contracts, finding ways to make the supply chain even smoother, building stronger relationships with the suppliers, the stuff that really makes a difference.
Exactly. It's not about replacing humans. It's about empowering them to do what they do best. It's like, having a co-pilot in the cockpit. Even with autopilot engaged, you still need a skilled pilot to monitor everything and, make those crucial decisions.
That is a reassuring thought. So just to kind of bring us back to where we started, we've talked about operational procurement, which is all our everyday needs, and direct procurement, which is more about those building blocks of a business. But how do those two things actually play out in terms of who's doing what within an organization? Are there teams dedicated to each? How does that work?
That's a great question. And it actually takes us back to what we were discussing earlier about the different types of users, right? So on the operational side, you might have, thousands of employees. Someone in the mailroom ordering more envelopes to a manager booking a last-minute business trip.
So we're back to the need for, like, user-friendly interfaces in operational procurement. It's got to be easy for everyone to use.
Exactly. We can't expect someone to, like, wrestle with a super complicated system just to order more sticky notes, right?
Probably not.
But then on the flip side, when you're talking about direct procurement, the users are typically a much smaller, more specialized group. They're already comfortable with, all the ins and outs of the system because procurement is what they do day in and day out.
Right. They live and breathe this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like we have, like, almost two different playing fields within the same game.
Yeah.
You need different rules, different equipment, different game plans depending on who the players are and what they're trying to accomplish.
I like that analogy. And that's actually one of the things that makes SAP S/4HANA so powerful. It's designed to accommodate both, operational and direct procurement. It's flexible enough to offer tailored solutions for each one.
So it's not like a one-size-fits-all approach. It's more about, like, finding the right balance between simplicity on the one hand and then sophistication on the other, all within the same system.
Exactly. You want something that's intuitive enough that someone who's never used it before can figure it out, without needing a 2-day training course just to request a new mouse.
Right.
But it's also got to be robust enough to handle all those complex scenarios that come up with large-scale, strategic procurement. And that's really what S/4HANA brings to the table.
It's kind of wild to see how technology is, like, completely changing the game when it comes to procurement, making things more efficient. And I'd even go so far as to say, dare I say, kind of exciting.
Yeah, it's true. And what we've talked about today, this is really just, scratching the surface. As technology keeps advancing, I think we're going to see even more innovation in how companies find and manage all their, materials and services.
Makes you wonder, like, could we even start seeing some of that cool automation that we've been talking about, the stuff that's, more common in direct procurement? Could that trickle down to the operational side as well?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's something a lot of companies are already thinking about. As artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning, all that becomes even more, advanced, it's not crazy to imagine a future where a lot of those operational purchases are also happening automatically.
So, like, instead of having to, go through the whole process of submitting a purchase requisition for a new monitor, this system could just, like, automatically generate one based on your usage patterns.
Exactly. Or even, take a step further and predict when your current monitor is about to bite the dust and, like, proactively order a replacement.
Wow. That is seriously next level stuff.
Yeah.
But even with all this amazing automation, it seems like at the end of the day, you still need human judgment to make sure everything runs smoothly.
100%. This isn't about replacing humans entirely. It's more about, figuring out how to best use technology to support and enhance what humans are already good at.
It's about finding that sweet spot where technology and human expertise can work together, like a well-oiled machine.
Exactly. The technology can take care of those tedious, repetitive tasks, freeing up procurement professionals to really focus their energy on those bigger picture items.
Things like, building those strong relationships with suppliers, coming up with innovative solutions, and making sure the company's getting the best possible value for every dollar spent, which I think we can all agree is a pretty important job.
Couldn't have said better myself.
Well, there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into the world of operational and direct procurement in SAP S/4HANA. We've gone from the basic definitions to, like, real-world applications, and even taken a little peek into the future of procurement in this, like, increasingly automated world. Hopefully you've walked away with, a better understanding of these two, like, really important aspects of procurement.
And how SAP S/4HANA can help companies, no matter what industry they're in, navigate this complex and constantly evolving landscape.
And hey, even in this age of automation, remember, it's human ingenuity, creativity, strategic thinking. That's still going to make all the difference.
Those are the things that really move the needle.
Exactly. So until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and never forget, behind every purchase, there's a story.